Hey, everybody. Welcome back to the podcast. I am so excited to share a really special guest with you today. I have Ellen Siegel, life mastery coach and life consultant. She is an inspirational public speaker, teacher, mentor, life and business coach, and Ellen provides uniquely tailored approaches to accessing and utilizing hidden strengths and talents in those who want assistance. She earned her master's degree in social work from Yeshiva University, acquired advanced training in hypnotherapy from the Wellness Institute in Seattle, and received an advanced certification in spirituality from Smith College. She's also the author of two beautiful books: Be Happy No Matter What, 5 Steps to Inner Freedom, and Handling Your Own Emotions. Welcome to the podcast, Ellen.
Thank you, Heidi. So great
I,
here.
you and I was lucky enough to have met you just a few weeks ago based on a friend of yours who I met through a networking group. And she said, I have somebody that you need to meet. And I love it when that happens. So we went to lunch and I loved the energy right away. We connected deeply on so many things. And a lot of the things that you shared hit me both personally and professionally. Um,
Mm.
and then you were kind enough to gift me your amazing book, Be Happy No Matter What, uh, a beautiful collection of your buttons, which we'll talk about on this podcast today. And your other handy guidebook, Handling Your Own Emotions. And I got home from that lunch and sat down and immediately consumed even more of your goodness. So, my intentions today are really to just share so many of the golden nuggets that we were able to connect on, and so much more for people to really um, create their own comeback in whatever avenue of their life that means for them.
Well, this is great. I just want to say about that we each have a wise inner self, whether we're in touch with it or not. And when we get all the other stuff out of the way, it can even give you guidance about brush your teeth now. Don't forget to pour water in your water bottle, or make this turn, don't make that turn. So it's important for me to say that the thoughts and the energy that's come into these few books and in the work that I do, and I'm going to say in the work that we all do, comes from a wiser, our wisest level of ourselves. And
Mm.
once you get that door open, then you've got a lot of good, wise information coming into you, our listeners, and I can speak for myself. And then you never know, a book comes through you, and then other people benefit from it besides me, in addition to me. So,
Mm. I love that. And I love that you were able to put it into book form. That's something that is really a gift that I think that uh not everybody can author and put it into words, and you just so beautifully put it into words. And I think it's a really unique topic. Be happy no matter what. That is a very catchy phrase and a very catchy title. And I think when perhaps you're in a space of what sometimes feels like, I call the sadness spiral, or a dark time in your human experience, or your soul's experience, all of it. Be happy no matter what might be a phrase that could be triggering to people.
oh, absolutely. I can tell you that with some of our colleagues, I've needed to introduce it as this is not false reassurance and it's not denial, because it could sound like that. And also, it's not happy go lucky, which it could be if that's something you're interested in. That can be an outcome that's anchored authentically in you. Nevertheless, it's a way to know that you don't have to stay stuck in victim consciousness, and that there is an enduring satisfaction you can recognize in your life when you switch or allow sort of a faculty of your mind to look at how well you're growing, that navigating through challenging situations. And usually, as one is coming back through divorce, coming back to themselves through divorce and from divorce, that each one of us, and I was divorced too, that each one of us, that's not our first go round with problem solving, navigating, courage, self-recognition, self-appreciation, even along with anxiety, depression, sadness, anger, hurt. That for some people it could be hard to believe that we can appreciate ourselves and feel great about that we're navigating, that we can open ourselves up to get help. So many of us feel that if we don't do it ourselves, it doesn't count. And actually, you're sort of a team leader. You have a team, whether it's an attorney, a mediator, your support system, finance people, people helping you with children if there are children involved. And, and then to have, someone who can help you plan your comeback. I mean, that's extraordinary. I mean, there's all kinds of coaches, and to have someone who's a guide, I think is really great if you're open to it.
Well, it's interesting what you said is, because I completely agree with this. You said, there's all these different elements of feelings that pop up, and they're actually not new to us. You said it's not our first time around navigating them and coping them, but sometimes it feels like it is. Why do you think that is? That
I've asked this question and I got good help, so I'm going to share what helped me, and it may stimulate the viewers, our listeners, that something even better will come up for them. And that is that you could view personal growth as a spiral. So I grew up in New York, and in elementary school, they teach New York State history. In middle school, they teach New York State history again, but at a deeper level. In high school, again, at a deeper level. And there's actually people who go on to college, study state history. There are people who go on, get master's degrees and doctoral degrees in that same state history. They don't, as they go forward, they don't usually say, oh, I'm regressing, which is very common when it comes to feelings. I'm slipping back, or even I take 2 steps back to go 1 step forward. I see it more as each one of us is like an ever blooming budding flower, that the growth just keeps going in one direction. And that's expanding awareness, expanding appreciation of your own talents and abilities, appreciating other people who are there to help you, and your growth. So yeah, we revisit something that maybe we've reworked well in the past, and you could say, oh no, not this again. Yeah, you could say, oh, here it comes again. I wonder what else I'm going to learn about myself in this kind of a challenge. So that was a great question.
I love that a lot. And I think another part of that might be, in my experience, that there wasn't a class per se in elementary school, then junior high, then high school, then college, although I very much believe, after going through my own healing, seeking out my own personal growth, development, healing resources, such as books and
Mhm,
podcasts and mentors and teachers and coaches and therapists.
mhm,
All of those things were not given to me. I had to seek them out
mhm,
versus being integrated into our educational experience, so that that spiral truly feels like this up leveling and expanding. So maybe that's why it feels like, to add to what you said, our first time around sometimes, because we are not intentionally focused
mhm,
on healing those things until the pain gets in
mm,
to it levels so intense sometimes that we go, now I need to figure out what's going on here and get support here and grow myself and understand this. And so maybe that's maybe part of the not feeling like this is the first time around.
Also, it I can liken it to like independent study. Like there were opportunities that some people took on where they designed their own class. And actually, I would say that's how it is for each one of us. So
Mm,
you can model after someone else's style or some techniques and things like that and leave space open because we each put it together in the way that we need it. It doesn't, most of it doesn't work to take it from one place and put it into another. I mean, people who are listening to this podcast now will take some things from you, some things from me, some things from someone else they remember, and then their own creativity takes over and weaves it into the, what shall I say, the security blanket of truth for
ooh,
yourself, for yourself.
yeah. I really love that you mentioned the false reassurance and denial a few minutes ago, that this be happy no matter what is not false reassurance. What do you mean by that? Can you explain that a little bit more?
Oh, it's going to be okay. It's going to be okay. Now, the truth is, it is going to be okay, but not in a superficial way. That's the thing. It's with depth and meaning. So I can say, I'm happy no matter what, not without appreciating myself in challenges, not thinking there are going to be no challenges. Although if you get the self appreciation and something you alluded to actually said self facilitating your own emotional development. We get to continue to emotionally develop. A lot of people think, oh, once you're an adult, you're grown, that's it. Guess what? We get to continue to grow. And once we get sort of a handle on how to do that, I will tell you that the stress diminishes. Um, Things that have been painfully challenging do shrink up into our, I like to call it, into the antique cabinet of myself. I don't have to throw anything of myself away. And even the things that have been, let's say, thorns in my side, they can dissolve. Some of us benefit from having it hang in the antique cabinet of ourselves. It's not active. We can recall all the fruitfulness that came out of it and not, we don't have to live in that pain.
Mm,
And some of us don't need to have a cabinet like that. We just, buy on to the next creativity forward. So
yeah.
we're all different.
After reading your book, Be Happy No Matter What, it occurred to me that for me, the underlying message was really how to come back to the version of me that feels most like me, that feels
Mhm.
authentically me. And when I feel authentically me and I understand what that looks like, and I understand and feel what that doesn't look and feel like, because that's the other
Mm.
part of the book, right? Like it's not that happy go lucky, like you said, necessarily. It's like, how do I feel like the most me and who is the most me?
Such a great question. So, two things come to mind. A client that I had years ago who went through breast cancer, and she was an extraordinarily enthusiastic and self appreciative athlete.
Okay.
And she didn't think she was going to be able to ski again and all kinds of things, and was struggling with the loss of her idea of who she was before.
Yes.
And and ultimately she ended up saying to me that, first of all, she was surprised that she felt in any alignment to anything that was like herself. And it surprised her because she said it didn't look like the old self. It was a whole new version of herself that she somehow went into sync with. So I think it's common that we're searching for a feeling that we had before. And I'm going to say it's really great to question as you come forward in your life. Let's say you're going through a divorce and now you know, you want to, you're coming back. You're coming back to yourself at a higher level because all the growth from before stacks up and serves every new challenge you. And so leave some room that that the you're coming back to is might be totally different, because we don't know how much of the true you was actually being expressed before, right? You know,
Yes.
we had this conversation at lunch that, you know, I mean, certainly me, I don't know, I'm like, whoa, I am so different than I was before, right?
I I was kind of hoping that you would share a snippet of your divorce story
Okay.
because I think it would fit really well with what we're talking about right now of kind of like your story is just so unique. I've never heard one quite like it. I've never heard anyone quite the same, but yours
Right.
really stands out for a lot of reasons. Can you share as much of that as you feel
Which
comfortable sharing?
which part is the
Yeah,
part that stands out for here now?
there's two.
And I'll
Yeah,
speak to them.
the parts that stand out. Well, the part that stands out right now in this moment is the part where you're in a good relationship, let's say, name it whatever adjectives you
Right.
want to use. And you've been with your husband for 29 years, was
29
it?
years, right?
29 years. And you've got your son and your life going, and you guys have everything going for you. And then all of a sudden you decide, you know what? You're almost everything that I want, but there's something missing, and I'm not willing to live my life without that part.
So that part was um and this was a man who I knew in high school. We were boyfriend and girlfriend, and it was just so many wonderful experiences. And he's a really great guy. And the only thing we didn't have was we didn't have an authentic communication, intimate, emotional about feelings. And that's common with many men. And
Yes.
so, I went to therapy and worked on myself, and actually, all those years thought it was me totally, and overcompensated totally. And I remember being in therapy, realizing, I said, wait a minute, I'm doing more than 50%. Okay. Then I let go a little bit, some more personal work, and we went to couples counseling, And I mean, he's a wonderful person, my husband. So, but I went to him one day. I said, honey, I don't know. I can't go one more day. I cannot go one more day. And he said, me, even though we're best friends, even though we are terrific co-parents, even though we love living together, I said, yeah. I said, I just can't go one more day. When I go to the supermarket and I say, how are you to the checkout person? And if they want to tell me, I want to hear. And he couldn't really relate that way. And so he said, okay. And he was in shock, I think. Um, and we were apart for 7 years. And friends. And I wasn't angry. I mean, I was angry earlier in the relationship because I didn't know what was bothering me and, making demands on him. And, that wasn't pretty. And so we lived separately. We got divorced. I had friends that said, maybe just get separated. I said, no, we have to divorce.
Why
And
did you feel like it was important to get divorced? Because I think it's really something that I think a lot of people would have just ridden it out. It's close enough. It's
yeah,
close enough. But it sounds like it was to the point where you could. What about that couldn't you go on with?
you know what? I could not have felt clear of the issue, if I didn't do that. I would have felt, connected. I mean, some people do energy work, energy cords, and just it's actually it's something similar to before you get married. Things could be great. Once the term marriage comes into play, it's symbolic, it's a metaphor, whatever marriage means to the parties that they're not even aware of. My great grandparents and how they treated each other, and all that stuff. When we come together with all our baggage. And ideally, if both parties are independent emotionally enough to work on their own baggage so that they're not seeing the other person to blame for how they feel, then, things can develop more easily. But when you have different levels, and I think most people do, of awareness of your baggage, ownership of your baggage, and you see the other person as responsible. I wasn't blaming him
Yeah.
when we got to that point of divorce. It was just, I couldn't go another day. Ultimately, he shared something years later, 7 years later, because we remained friends, and we had a child together. And he said, I finally figured out what was wrong with me. I said, I didn't know that anything was wrong with you. It was just we weren't in alignment totally. And he said that every time I opened my mouth, he heard his mother's voice. And that was what I heard. I heard the first personal communication from the inside of himself. I said, I want to know you on the inside. Maybe, not everybody wants to share themselves. I said, just give me a little something. Just give me a little something. Well, this was a big something.
Well, it was
And
major.
it was huge. And then my situation changed where I was living, and I was looking for a place to park myself while I figured out what I was going to do. This is like 7 years later. He said, well, you could always stay here. And I said, well, I'm a little nervous. We're so great. We're great friends and everything. And I was a little nervous that some of those thoughts would come back to me. When you put yourself back in a similar looking situation, it can bring things back. And he said, well, I feel that way too. And, why don't we, if we each feel something coming up, we'll let the other person know and we'll put it on the table and discuss it. Well, that was like the second great thing. So blah, 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 fast forward, We moved to the state where our son went to college, which is here in Ohio, and we were not married. And I was going to go. Our son said, would you and dad ever think about moving out here, even though our son knew we were divorced? And I said, I'm going. I said, you want to go? He said, yeah. So we looked for an apartment, came together, we lived together in a new space that was not mine, not was his, wasn't his, and it wasn't former. And I think that makes a difference, because I have some clients who are entering second relationships.
Okay.
A house of one of the partners. You could clear a lot of things out of the way by selling your houses and buying something new, or going into a new apartment or something like that. And I wasn't aware of that. I wasn't orchestrating that, from my earth brain. And we got remarried. We have all the stuff that was great. And I'm going to tell you, we don't have any of the stuff that wasn't great. And I will say, it's hard to tell whether he's changed or I changed. This part I didn't get to tell you.
No.
So what I know is I got these few deep things. I'm not afraid he's not going to, we can talk, but I'm not demanding that we talk emotional all the time. He's not that outgoing in that way. That's okay, as long as it's there if I ask. I see something on your face. What's going on inside? He used to say nothing, or I'm tired, or what are you talking about? Now it's like, oh yeah, and he'll tell me. And it's fabulous. So I'm really happy about it. So thanks for asking.
I really love that story, and thank you for sharing all parts of that, because I really think it speaks to the happiness that you created for yourself first.
Mm.
Like I said, it could have been some people would view it as, oh, it'll just be easier if we just ride the wave. There, it's 95% everything that I want in a partner, but that 5%, or assign whatever amount you
was
want,
huge for me.
Was really important, really of so much value, that being able to take that time apart and still exist in each other's lives, and not just for the sake of your son, but because you
No.
still really enjoyed the elements of each other, but understood what that meant for you.
Yes.
I know for me, and so many of the women that I work with, it had felt really difficult to stay connected to my ex. Why do you think a lot of people have that hardship in staying connected in any capacity, whether that's nowadays a big thing is social media. So even if they don't communicate with you, I got people that are poking around, they call it kind of trolling around their social media, even though they're not really getting anything for themselves from that. They're kind of hoping that they're seeing the other people fail at their relationships in life, because then that will validate that they were everything that person needed. It's a really interesting thing. So why do you think so many people have such a hard time staying connected to
I'll tell you one thing was, I never ever had the thought that we would get back together. So somehow I had this something that was a true detachment, that whatever I could enjoy. And I really didn't know, because I engineered the divorce. He was not happy. He wasn't happy. And he had a hard time. And, I loved him anyway. And I'd been working on not being codependent, because I'd had issues with my mother over the years. And so the idea of detachment. So when you have a hard time, sort of really separating from the X. It's I would say, who's ever having that, if you do some reading in the area of codependence, just to get the definitions, you don't have to do any, and then start to notice that you're attached, even though you're pushing it away, you're sort of pushing it away, but your foot's still on the accelerator, you know? And it's not, how can I say this? Awareness is, I just was given a book that I hadn't known about. And I've been studying myself like you for years. And it's called Awareness by Anthony DeMello. And I was told that this is a classic. So I thought, how did I not even hear this person? And what I love about, and certainly I'm gobbling it up to see what I have been familiar with and what's new. You always want to listen for new information when you are getting help or even inside yourself. What's new that I haven't known before? What I like about how this author puts, he doesn't really use the term codependence. He talks about how we tell ourselves stories to help ourselves feel better. How nice is that? That's a nice view. You can even let go of self-judgment. We all tell ourselves stories to help ourselves feel better. And if we start to notice that we're making the story a little too comfortable, then we might be able to see something about ourselves that maybe we don't like, though when we see it, it can automatically change by coming to awareness. And the way you feel is it just falls away. And if it's something that really strikes you, you can get help to dismantle it. And one of the things I loved that I've never heard before, I've heard it in lots of different words, but never these words about feelings. Feelings come and go. Feelings come and go. I just told this to my 2.5-year-old grandson today, who goes, I'm mad. I'm so mad. So this author says that we've been taught to identify with the feelings. And if you see them as they come and go, so, okay, so here it comes. Oh, it's here for a while, and watch it go. That way, they don't stick in you. And it's not you. Remember earlier you said, that me, which is me? How do I know that I'm coming back to me, the truer sense of myself? Well, start to recognize that everything else flows like in a river. The situation, coming back after divorce, you know what? There's after the divorce. There's after everything. There's after anger, there's after sadness, there's after hurt. And that the you who you discover is truly you, holy cow, these things are not sticking to that part of yourself.
I think that's an incredible saying, feelings come and go, because I have spoken to so many humans who say things like, I'm an anxious person, right? Instead of just saying, I'm experiencing feelings of anxiety right now.
That's it, right there.
It's
right now.
I am this, and just saying, I'm going to hold on. It's like wrapping your arms around that identity. And that, I think, is what suffocates us or keeps us stuck, or like this Velcro and all those little balls that you throw on the little Velcro, that game where they're Velcro and felt, Velcro and felt. And there's just these constant identities being thrown at us either by society or by ourselves. And we're sticking all these balls on us all over, and we got to pull them off one at a time and go, I am not this.
Yes, I
I'm
am not this.
experiencing sensations of these feelings. Ooh, I know something I wanted to ask you about on this topic is you had shared something with me that I thought was incredible at lunch, and that was the importance of separating feelings from actions.
Mm,
Can you
mm.
talk about that?
Yes, yes. I just want to skip back. I don't want to lose something you just said. Um, and this author in this book, Awareness, Anthony DeMello, um, and a lot of us, you and me, and our listeners, at different times, I'm anxious, I'm depressed. To use the language that you just, I'm experiencing depression now. So, any of you who are listening, make a note of that, because if you do one thing, start doing that about feelings.
It's beautiful.
Okay. So, okay, remind me now.
Yeah, I love that. Thanks for sharing that. The importance of separating
Oh, I got it.
feelings from actions.
Okay. So, here's an example. The best example is why one could say it's necessary to separate feelings from actions. So, lots of us, when growing up, whether it's on TV or our parents or other situations we've been in, have experienced anger and violence together, right? Just that's how it is. You know, your big brother or sister is angry with you and they hit you. And so you get these two things together. So later on, when you're working on yourself, let's say, and you want to undo that kind of situation, it can, I opinion, not that people come around to things in different ways, and there's many different ways to heal. In my consciousness, if you try to heal anger and violence together, it's much harder. If you separate them out, anger is a feeling. It comes and goes. You get to have it. Everybody gets to have it. Violence is an action that is never acceptable. So, and this is a severe case. I mean, example, anger and violence. It's like other things. You could love someone and that's pure. And then in that relationship, there's guilt that you've somehow gotten because the person says, well, if you love me, you would do this for me. And, when you hear that, sometimes a person hearing that might say, well, well, then I guess I don't love you. So those are two different things, even though they're both feelings. But there are things that we do out of guilt to make up for it, that could conflict with the fact that we love the person. How we feel is one thing, and how we feel, feelings come and go, they come up. It's sort of like, I don't know if anyone can relate to this, but when you were younger, if you ever had a crush on someone, you couldn't pick who you had a crush on. It just came up. So feelings come up, actions are chosen. And very often they're happening at the same time. So we feel that, oh no, I didn't have a choice about that.
I have
Say again.
I have an example on this that I'm curious if this is what you mean by it. So help walk me through this, because this does come up quite a bit in my coaching. I get women who have gone through infidelity. They've been cheated on, experiencing that, and they go, "How could he do this to me?
To me.
How could he do this to me? If he loves me, feeling,
Right,
how could he cheat on me, action?"
right,
And
right,
then that interconnection, by keeping that connected, like you
right.
described, makes it feel nearly
Possible.
impossible to move forward. How do you then separate them when they feel so deeply entwined in your story?
Well, that is a perfect example because I have clients in that situation too. And so it comes to me that there's a whole list of feelings that the person who has been cheated on gets to experience: hurt, betrayal, anger, loneliness, jealousy, shame, goes on and on and on.
Yep.
So first, you just I usually get from the person that there's no question that they want to heal, right?
Right.
So these are all feelings that are going on inside the person, and chances are have not been fully appreciated up until then in their life.
Yeah.
So the feeling part, those of us who've been cheated on, the feeling part we get to own as ours even before this happened.
Like acceptance, you're talking about allow, or allowance, actually.
Allowance.
Before acceptance, it's allowance of, I'm going to allow the hurt and the betrayal and the loneliness and the shame to
to,
exist.
to full bloom is the way really to deal with it.
Yeah.
And whether it's there's always a breakdown before a breakthrough,
Yeah.
and this is the person's opportunity now to really have their feelings. Painful, painful, painful. They may have been taught, our society says, don't have your feelings. Everything says, don't have your feelings. You
Yeah.
know, and that's where the put a smile on and keep going. Well, that's not be happy no matter what.
No.
Be happy no matter what starts with, oh my God, I am such a sensitive person. Now, a lot of us have been criticized for that. Well, guess what? Either you're a sensitive person or you're not. So it's nice to be a sensitive person. And
Yeah.
somebody will say, oh, but it's so painful. It's only painful because you've been keeping from it for years. And unfortunately, and I'm getting a message now, it's not truly unfortunate. Nobody likes to feel feelings that they don't like.
Hmm.
Nobody. Guess what? It's like, it's like a rite of passage in living. It's like not accepting that you get to have a buffet breakfast in the morning. You don't have to eat all of it, but you're being provided with this breakfast of jewels of yourself. Now you could say, well, how could this be a jewel? Well, when you accept how hurt you felt in your life, and were not allowed, you got the message that you weren't allowed and that you didn't allow yourself to feel, because maybe it was risky. Maybe you would have been punished. Maybe you would have been killed. For sure, the other person might not like it. And maybe you were brought up to treat people in a way that you made sure that everybody liked you. That's like, a hot air balloon, unfortunately. A lot of us learn things when we're kids. Just like when we're kids, we eat the food that the adults give us.
Mm.
And you can't blame yourself for that. That's another added suffering that comes with all those feelings when you go through having been cheated on, is that you're now judging yourself also. You know, I had a feeling, why did I go with this person? They never were good to me. What was wrong with me? I didn't get out. All of that stuff, you don't want any of that,
Mm-hmm.
because it comes from being an innocent child eating what they gave you. We were not taught. We were not taught, and maybe we weren't supposed to be. Maybe we're supposed to learn at this age. And so it's like how to talk yourself into that these are lessons that you get to learn. And, I'm thinking about it's like the 20th postdoctoral degree in your life, or when a crafts person learns how to make furniture, and then it gets finer and finer and finer and harder to do it, and it takes extra work. And so very often when faced with that kind of, what shall I say, I like to call bouquets of feelings that you don't like, it's like, I'm not crazy about gladiolas. I like daisies. Well, guess what? They're flowers. They have their own beauty in them. So feelings that we don't like have beauty in them. And if you can get somebody to help you withstand that, you can go through these feelings, then they're going to go through you just like feelings come. They've piled up. Now, you could blame your partner for doing this. And a lot of you, this is going to sound terrible, but down the road, that person could have opened the door for you to be your most creative self, your freest self. You can't see that when you're faced with your own pain. But this is your pain. And it can be maddening that the other person's going off with someone else.
Yeah.
They're left and lonely and all that stuff.
There's
Get help to have that experience so you can go on from it.
absolutely. There's a concept in one of your books where you talk about how to up level your upset. And I love in there, you say that in each upsetting situation, the thing to ask is, what is the really great value in this for me?
Right.
How does that work in our favor in a situation like this? How does this change it?
Yeah. Well, how can I say this? There's so many different angles to all these experiences are experiencing, that if you can grab one of them and turn it, then everything opens up and falls into place behind that. So I'm a big fan for my own growth is I write things on index cards and I put them around. Yeah, it's easiest if you're living on your own, because people make fun of me and, but meanwhile, they get the lessons too. So, or carry around cards with you and say, what is the wonderful benefit in this for me? And to recognize that part of you doesn't want to hear the answer.
Why is that? Why is that? Why is that?
I think, why is that? It's a good question. I'm not sure I know what the answer is to that, as much as it's something to reckon with in ourselves. Whether it's running away from what we think is painful. I think it might be fear. It's like running away from fear. I don't really want to know.
I think it is fear of the unknown.
Yeah.
And sometimes it's more comfortable to just stick with what you've got than to um, get curious around the opportunity.
And I think curious around the opportunity first of all, opportunity, curious, and wonderful benefit for me. Those things go together like a bouquet. And that's like a personal growth bouquet. And the fact that, I mean, there's a part of you that can say, oh no, that's ridiculous that there's any benefit. It's almost like a part of me that'll go, no, there's no benefit in this for me, and digging my heels in and start to recognize that that's a cute little character in yourself. And
Yes.
then shrink it down so it's going. My friend Karen calls it the I don't wannas.
The I don't wannas.
I don't wanna. And you could chuckle about it in yourself, or you could go, oh my God, that's been there for years. What other things have I not been able to experience because of that part of myself? Now, you don't have to crucify that part of yourself. You just need to see it as a little character in there.
I love the idea of shrinking, just shrinking that character, just shrinking them. The goal is not to just eliminate or
No.
destroy. It's just, again, that allowance and inclusion is a huge part of this, and acknowledging all the things within us, but just shrinking that, or I call it like turning down the noise, quieting that
Turning down
voice.
the noise. The other thing about that aspects of that kind of a character is it maybe saved your life when you were little. It
Mm.
had you hide under the bed when your father was coming with a stick, or your mother. It had you be quiet in the classroom when you didn't want to get called on, because every time you got called on, you got the wrong answer, and everybody went, ooh. So it might have saved your life then. We're not kids anymore. And when you start to see that you've successfully navigated many things, you can start to recognize there's that part of you that can continue to facilitate your growth and grab on to a concept like all right, so what's the lesson in this for me? What do I want to learn? And sometimes it's independence.
Yeah.
Or that I'm creative, or that I have a friend who says, why do I have to keep setting boundaries with people? Why do I have to keep saying no? So I said to her, and we're pretty close. I said to her, because you're not convinced yet that it's okay for you just to say no.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like you're fighting to say no, and it looks like the other person's fighting back. I said, once you just say no, the other person's just going to accept it, and that's it. And if they come after you, so you'll get an order of protection or move to another state or whatever you need to do.
Yeah.
You'll take an action.
Taking action is so powerful. I want to talk a little bit about the button experiment. Can you talk about what the button experiment is and what you've learned from it?
Okay. Someone gave me an idea to make a button. So actually I have one on. I don't know if anybody will get to see this video, but I can tell you about it. So it's I am happy no matter what is on the button. And so I don't know, I had them made up, and I just walked around with them in a bowl, not saying, would you like one? And people were like curious, and they'd say, oh, how much are they? And I'd say, oh, happiness is free. Take a few. And so people would start to take them. Another one, my favorite one, is to wear it like in the supermarket, and a store associate, a checkout person will say, oh, what's that button you have on? And, I just tell them. And I said, well, since you spotted it, it must be for you. And the person, I was like so surprised, by how I felt in giving. I felt like I gave this person, the way they were responding was like they got like $300 or something. And I got the feeling like I was giving them something really special. So these buttons, and there's 17,000 buttons out there
Wow.
over a few years. And was fun to walk around. Was waiting for a plane like at 5 in the morning. Everybody's sort of half asleep, and I'm just walking around with this bowl, and about 5 people said, "Rrrr." And but the rest was like, "Oh, I would like one of those. Can I have one of those? Can I have one for my sister?" I said, "Sure." And this is so much fun. And on the website, BeHappyNoMatterWhat.com, there's a tab. One of the tabs has button stories. So some
Oh,
people who've had fun doing this have put some stories there. And
I I think it's a really special thing because I always start a lot of times my clarity calls when people are just starting to get to know me and want to see if I'm the right fit for them
yes.
to work together. I always say, what is it? The second half, the first part is we kind of explore where you're at right now. And the second part is, what are you looking for? And 9 times out of 10, they're looking to be happy again. But they don't really know what that means because I'm always going to ask, well, what is happiness for you? Because I think it's important that be happy no matter what. Well, how are you going to know what happiness is? Like what it looks like, what it feels like. So I think it's really special that when you said you would have thought that I gave them the most incredible gift, I think you did, because what most people want is happiness.
Mm,
And sometimes we just need a reminder. Your phrase was happiness is free, take it. We
mm,
just need a reminder, take it. It's right there. At Joyfully Be, I'm always telling people like my button would say, I choose joy.
mm.
It would say, I choose joy because I do believe it's a choice. And I do believe that finding our inner truth and inner authenticity, which for me is my happiness. That's another great question I think to ask people is what is your happiness? Like what is your
Mm,
happy?
mm,
What is that inside of you?
mm.
I think that is finding yourself. What is it? What do you think it is to be happy no matter what?
I think that's great. I think that's great.
What would that be for you, Ellen?
Oh, for me, it's awareness. It's awareness. It's discovering discovering myself and experiencing others, discovering themselves.
Hmm. It's everything. It really is.
It's everything.
That's the humanness, that's the soulfulness, that's the connection,
Hmm.
all those pieces and parts. And I really think that if I could wrap a bow around your book, I think awareness is
Mm.
what it's about. I
Mhm.
think it is what you called earlier. I love the phrase you used, self study.
Mm.
Like it really is that study of self
Mhm.
and
Mhm.
self awareness. And when we can walk through the world with awareness, so much more becomes available to us.
Yes. Yeah, you really, it's a different kind of life when you can't see what's happening or what you're experiencing, um, that you're not aware of. What you're aware of, you can experience and enjoy and
Mhm.
modify, or, I like the idea that idea of viewing yourself and your life as a masterpiece work of art uh, implies that you're creating, that you're in the now, and you can have plans and things like that, and then be open to what it means to go with the flow or other things. Sometimes we've grown up with a lot of rigidity about how things have to be. And um, I remember my first therapist said to me, Ellen, you're really demanding. And I was like, me demanding? I'm so loving and kind. And he says, oh, I see you don't know what demanding is. I said,
Oh,
what? He said, oh, he said, the degree to which you get upset when something's not happening is the degree to which you are demanding. I was like, holy cow. He stopped me right in my tracks.
that's
Holy cow, really.
that stopped me in my tracks. I'm gonna have to digest that one for a little while.
Yeah, because boy, I got upset about a lot of things and
Sure.
felt pretty secure in why I did and why it should be a different way.
Mm-hmm. Mm. I think it's really important for folks navigating their happiness and finding themselves to have simple things that they can start with. So, based on our chat today, what's one thing our listeners or viewers can do to start supporting their comeback, creating their comeback?
Okay, one is a broad thing, and the other we mentioned about the idea of feelings. Get friendly with that you have feelings and think about them as having the ability to come and go. Now, the ones you have now, you might feel stuck in because you haven't thought yet that they're going to go. Just go. So there's more to discover about that. And then the other thing is to know that we've all been victims in one way or another. And that it's not required to stay in victim consciousness. You want to leave the victim experience, that category, with whatever that experience was, and not take victim consciousness on into your comeback.
Mm. My busy brain goes, how do I do that?
Well, you could get the Be Happy book, right?
Yeah.
And read it a few times
Mm.
and read it with somebody because it's pretty simply put. And what it is, it's a reframe on your childhood. Even the best childhood um, has things because all kids draw conclusions about themselves, usually demeaning conclusions about themselves. And based on that, choose behaviors that are okay when you're kids, but get you things backfire when you're an adult. Like when you're expecting somebody, when you're blindsided in a marriage, you know, and, when you don't want to get out when you know you should,
Yeah.
you know, or just start your growth. Sometimes being blindsided in a marriage is the beginning of your growth, conscious growth.
I,
Sometimes it starts earlier.
I definitely think,
Go
oops,
ahead.
sorry. I definitely think that exploring yourself is the first step. That
Yeah.
self-discovery, I believe, is the recovery.
Oh, self-discovery is the recovery. Do that. Put that on a button.
Yeah.
Make a page on your site. Self-discovery is the recovery.
Yeah. Yeah.
That's
That's
beautiful.
definitely believe that is where the recovery is, that's where it all happens, is staying curious with ourselves, knowing what triggers us, and knowing how we react, and shifting into a space of response. There's just so
Right.
many pieces and parts of this, so many pieces and parts. And I think the other part of this I want to challenge our listeners and viewers to is what you said to your button people. Happiness is free. Take it. Take it. And you'll find that through that self-discovery.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
And I'll tell you, in this piece that I was talking about, Awareness by Anthony DeMello, he says what came through him was happiness is there, like you're saying, it's there. Just let the illusions, the covers go. Allow yourself to discover yourself, and that's what you're going to discover.
That's it. That's it. Wow. You are one of my favorite people to talk to and spend time with. I
Ditto,
feel like
ditto.
there are just so many golden nuggets every time. And like you said about the book, and we're going to put that book in the show notes so folks know
Okay,
what
great.
that looks like, along with your books, of course, and where people can get you. But our conversations always really help me hear concepts differently, and we sat for lunch and you graciously gave me your book. You said there's probably nothing in there that you haven't heard before, but there's so much in there that I heard differently for the first time. And I think
Okay.
it's so important that even if we think we've heard something before or heard someone speak on a topic before, I always just sit there as if it's my first time hearing it. And even sometimes, you know, we could have the same conversation 2 weeks from now, 2 months from now, 2 years from now. And because of where we're at in our own lives and our own journeys, other nuggets are going to come up and come out in different ways.
I'm looking forward to that. Let's do that.
Yes, for sure. For sure. How can our listeners get more of you in their lives?
Okay. Well, there's the Be Happy No Matter What.com site, and you can sign up for complimentary contemplative thoughts to go into your email box. And they're very, what shall I say? Oh, they're more than inspiring. They're like provoking, thought provoking, that will bring up connection with your true self. So that's a neat thing. I do, consultation on life issues and life mastery. So, and for that, you can reach me through the website, Ellen at BeHappyNoMatterWhat.com, or you can call me at 614-389-5795. And also there's a YouTube channel that's called, you could look under Ellen Siegel, that's Seigel, Enlightening Conversations. And then there's the podcast, Enlightening Realizations. So, and it's a lot of conversations like you and I are having. And so I'm going to look forward to us having a conversation on a topic that we look like, and we'll do that in the future too.
Amazing. I know
Thank
that
you.
so many folks are going to benefit. Like, I know I'm going to get signed up on your newsletter so that I can get those prompts. I love a good prompt in my life on a regular basis.
Great.
I have two closing questions for you
Okay.
if you're interested. The first one is, what is one thing that you love about you?
Oh. Uh-oh, you saw me. You saw me being in love with myself. Uh-oh. Uh-oh. I can't deny that. And now it's on a recording. I'm going to try to run away from that, but I'm not going to be able to. I'm open. Even though my foot is on the brake sometimes, I'm really open. I'm really open. I like that. And I like to play with reframing thoughts. Even though I know that's playing with thoughts, I use that to help myself. So there was a time where I really enjoyed being on vacation more than other things. So I imagined that vacation was the backdrop to everything I was doing. So in my mind, in a scene in my life, every scene, there were like palm trees and I was on a beach. And that's where I was operating from. And you could say, well, that's not reality. Well, let me tell you something. My inner reality, it really helped me
Ah,
get through different situations. So those are two things.
I love both of those.
Yeah.
And I felt and feel that openness with you when I'm in your presence. And it's a beautiful, beautiful thing to love about yourself. And the last question that I ask people on my show is, what does joy feel like in your body?
Mm. Well, the closest thing I have to that is like it's like an effervescing energy that comes up and goes straight out through my head, my whole head. And it's and it has an exuberance with it. And I see it naturally on our grandson who's 2.5. So when I look at him, I like it's just it's like a thrill of some sort that comes
Ooh.
through me.
Ooh, I love that. I love this question so much because everyone answers it very uniquely,
Isn't
both of
that
those
great?
questions.
I
And
love it.
every time somebody answers it for them, I feel it. It's
Get it right.
really a really, really energizing thing. So thank you so much for sharing this conversation today. I appreciate you and your gifts and your energy and your spirit. It's such a beautiful thing to be a part of.
So, and I would be remiss if I didn't say this, and this goes for anyone who's listening, who's appreciating anything that's coming on here, is it takes one to know one. So if something in what we're sharing rings true for you, then own that for yourself. So I so appreciate you, Heidi, and our connection and being able to share. So
Absolutely.
thank you so much. I look forward to seeing you again soon.
Likewise, likewise. And to everybody else out here in the on the airwaves and wherever you have found us, just a kind reminder to you as we close that you are loved, you are safe, you are enough. So go out into the world, shine your light bright, and love yourself healthy. We'll see you soon.